So for this video, I'm going to show you how to do a sponge gradient. I've prepped this nail, which is the accent nail I'm going to do, and you want to use the lightest colour that you're going to do the gradient with. I usually tend to use 3 polishers because I feel that gives it the best effect. It's a gradual gradient rather than going from a light straight to a dark where you get a line. It's very difficult not to have a line. So if you want a nice smooth gradient, you need to use three colours, preferably with the same kind of colour so that you're gradiating from light to dark. Or you can use different colours, but you want to try and go from light to dark gradually rather than say a pale pink and then a red on the end, or dark pink. You would want to go for a pale pink, a medium tone pink, and then a dark pink. All different colours, but the tone needs to be gradual like that. Obviously, you're going to need a sponge. I use non-latex sponges because I'm allergic to latex, first of all. And I had seen it on a video saying that not to use latex. I think maybe it doesn't soak in, maybe, or it soaks in too much. I don't really know the difference, but that's what I use. And before you start, you're going to need to mask around the nail because you will get a lot of mess around here. As I said, I'm allergic to latex. So what I do is to put some PVA glue or Elmer's glue, same thing really, in an old nail polish bottle. This is just, I think, a top coat bottle, which I've cleaned out with acetone, given it a really good clean, and then put some washing up liquid inside and some hot water and shaken it out really well. So it's all completely clear of acetone and nail polish. Dried it out, and then I've put some PVA glue inside. Now, it's not as effective as liquid latex, and it doesn't dry as quickly as a liquid latex, but as I'm allergic to that, this is the only option that I've got. With this, I tend to put on 2 coats because 1 coat just isn't really enough. It's quite thin. It's not as thick as the liquid latex. So you want to load the brush up really well. Get it as close to the nail as you can. And some on there in case you get a bit on there. And then don't forget the top here. As close to the nail as you can without getting any on the nail. And then I need to let that dry before applying the second coat. Okay, so that's dry now, and that's taken about 5 minutes to dry. So I shall apply the second coat. Again, exactly the same method as before. As close as you can to the cuticle. If anything, the second coat I will probably put on a little bit thicker. And then I'll let that dry. Okay, so that's pretty much dry. That's had about 10 minutes, but then I did put it on quite a lot thicker for the second coat, so it's about to take a little bit longer to dry. So I would say if you're doing it with this method, you need to leave 15 to 20 minutes for it to dry properly. It's a little bit damp there, not quite dry there, it's a little bit tacky, but that doesn't really matter. By the time I've put the gradient on, that should be dry. Now it's a good idea to prep the sponge just to remove any little tiny hairs or bits of fluff or anything. So I just put a little piece of sellotape over it, and that will take off any little bits of debris. What you want to do is to take all the lids off, loosen all the lids on the polishers so that you can easily get to them. And I put them in order that I'm going to use them to put them on the sponge. As you can see, because I've got silver, I'm going for silver at the base, then the middle colour, and then the darker colour on the end. Make sure you put plenty of polish on. A lot of it will soak into the sponge, which is actually what you want, because you don't want to put it onto the nail. You want to, it's the glitter that you want to put, or the polish that you want to put onto your nail, in this case the glitter, rather than a lot of liquid. And try and sort of overlap them a little bit so that they kind of blend in with each other. Don't be in so much of a rush to put it on, because as you can see, it's still quite liquidy. And you want some of that liquid to soak into the sponge. If you put it on with too much liquid, it just smears it, really. It doesn't apply very well. I would say that that's about ready because it's not coming out too much. And then just dab. Don't do it too much, just 3-4 dabs, and then leave it, and then leave that to dry. And while you're waiting for that to dry, I put the lids back on. Now, the reason that I don't overdo it too much is because you can end up smearing it and you lose the effect then. So you need to leave that dry, which doesn't take very long. It does dry quite quickly. And then go for the second coat. And I quite often find that it probably will take about 3 coats to build up that gradient so that it looks really nice. Yeah, I think that's ready for the second coat now. So again, loosen the lids and put them in order. It would be such a shame we get to this point and then you mix it all up and it's completely wrong. So start with silver. This time I'm going to take this a bit further down into the silver. Right. You can see the colours building up nicely. Now you can see why you have to mask around the nail. And even though I have masked around the nail, I'll still have to do a little bit of cleanup afterwards. One thing to mention, with the final coat, as soon as I've applied the final coat, I'm going to apply a coat of top coat straight away over the top of it, which what will happen is that will help to blend it all in together. If you leave it, then you may get more of a line, not so much with these polishes, but if you have colours that may be different, really different colours, you might get more of the line. It does tend to just drag it across and blend it in that bit more. That's what I've found anyway. And see, less is more. It's important to build up the coats rather than going over it again and again and again, because the more you go over it, the worse it gets. You can just about see where it's starting to peel now, here. And because I've put on 2 coats, it's quite easy to pull off. If you just put 1 coat on, it's difficult to pick it off the skin because it kind of soaks into the skin a bit. So with this, you need 2 coats. But I think with liquid latex, it's quite thick, so 1 coat is fine. So as you can see, there's a little bit around the edge there, which needs cleaning up, but not much. Most of it has been covered with the barrier. So I shall take my little brush and acetone and clean it up. That's the end result after removing the barrier and cleaning up. So in this video, I'm going to show you some slightly more artistic methods of applying nail polish with a sponge, just to give you some more techniques and ideas of how to incorporate just an artistic aspect to your manicures. So we're going to use some slightly brighter colours this time, and I've painted a base coat of white on all my nails because that just makes the colours really pop. So if you're using brighter colours and you want quite an impact, maybe on just an accent nail, it's best to use a white undercoat. So this is just a general white. This one is Alpine Snow by OPI, but any white would do, just to give a base. And on this nail, I shall do a gradient of 3 or possibly 4 colours here. And I shall do a vertical gradient as opposed to a horizontal one. On this nail, I shall show you how you can do a gradient in any direction. So I think I shall do a diagonal gradient. It's basically the same method, but just to show you how it looks. That can look quite modern and nice, something a little bit different. And then on these 2 nails, I shall do something a little bit more artistic. I think on this finger, I shall do a circular gradient, and that can be quite effective sometimes. And then on this finger, I shall just do some freehand abstract effect, and I shall use stamping polish instead of standard polish because it's a lot thicker. You can do it with standard polish, but it does make it easier if it's a very highly pigmented one. But because stamping polish is so highly pigmented and thicker, it's a lot easier for that purpose. And these 3 polishes that I'll be using are OPI's Big Apple Red, Silicon Valley Girl, and Exotic Birds Do Not Tweet. As usual, I shall loosen up the lids, do the lids so it's easy to get to the nail polish. And so this one I'm going to be doing vertically, so I shall apply it here this way. So now, as usual, I'm going to straight away go in with a coat of top coat. It's quite a nice effect. So while I let that dry, I'm going to move on to this one, and I'm going to do a diagonal pattern. I think I might use this blue, orange and red. Yeah, I'll go blue, orange and red, I think, for this. I'm going to do a more narrow line. And then I need to leave that to soak in. And that's the first coat. It looks a little bit more artistic, doesn't it? Okay, that's pretty dry, so I'll remove the masking now. So this is now dried, so we'll go on the second coat of that. So the trick here is going to be getting this lined up with the previous pattern here. So you just have to try your best. And I would leave that now. And with this one, I think I shall start with the orange in the middle, and then yellow, and then red around the edge, I think. Yeah, I think that's about right. And try to get the dot right in the centre. It's a really pretty effect, abstract effect. Also, what you could do is you could do any pattern really, just splodges here and there. Just making sure when you do the second coat, you put the same coloured splodges in the same places. You know, you can do any sort of design that way. This one's now dry, so I shall do the final coat on this one, and then I shall immediately follow that with the top coat. Okay, so that's all been cleaned up. So now we're ready to put the third coat onto this one. That's created a nice effect, so I think I shall leave it at that. And I'm not going to put the top coat on instantly this time, because I don't want to lose the crisp effect around the edge there of the yellow. So I shall leave that for a minute. And we'll move on to this one. So for this one, I'm going to do the colours individually rather than painting them all onto the sponge. I'm just going to put a little bit of a dab and then just dab it on and just see how I go with that. For this time, I'm going to be using the extra thick stamping polishers. They're brighter as well, which helps. And I'm just going to artistically just dab on wherever I feel I want to put some. So I shall start with this bright pink. It looks a bit reddy here under the camera, but it is actually quite a vibrant pink. I shall just use a bit of an abstract pattern. Just dab it like that, I think. And for these, because it's an abstract pattern that I'm doing, and they are thicker polishers, and I don't want to, I might not be able to get exactly over that shape and do the same shape again. So I'm just going to do it once and just in abstract places. So for this, you don't need to have a white undercoat. You can have, just paint a couple of coats of polish on that nail and using a polish that you would want to see through the design as a background colour. So it doesn't matter if you don't have to cover this. You can just add a few splotches where you want them. I should go for some other colours. This is a nice light blue. Okay, let's go back to this one. That's now dry. So I shall take the masking off this one and then this one. So they're four completely different designs. These obviously are a similar technique. That one's very different and that looks very pretty, I think, the way it's sort of very abstracty and then very arty and abstracty, this one. So now I'm going to put some top coat on these three, and then I think for this one, because it's quite a modern abstracty design, I'm going to use a matte top coat. I'm going to use a matte top coat, and that will really make it that bit modern. There we are, four very different effects. There's endless possibilities to be really artistic with a sponge. So give it a go. So for this effect, I'm going to be using a medium glitter polish. Now you can do it with a fine glitter polish, but this is most effective on these size flakes, or medium to large flakes. Now for this, I've applied the base colour to all of my nails. And then I applied one coat of the glitter polish just as a base before I start. This finger I'm going to keep as just one coat over the top so that you can see the difference. So first things first, I now need to mask around the nail as usual, but you've seen that process before, so I will just fast forward to the next step. So I've got my sponge and now I shall apply the polish. You want to make sure that you put plenty of polish on the sponge. And leave it for a little bit for it to soak in, not too long, just so it's not quite so liquidy. Would be about right. Simply just pat it on like that. It's different than with a gradient. With a gradient, you only want to do 3 or 4 swipes. But with this, you want to get it encrusted. And any little bits that stick out on the end, if you just wait a moment for it to set slightly, and then just push it back from the free edge. There's a little encrusted bit there, just squash it on. And then just have a little look, one side to the other. Is it completely covered? As you can see this side, there's a little bit there, which hasn't quite covered. So that's pretty dry now. So I shall reapply on that side. That's about it. It's covered all the way around. Now I should just gently pat down from the edge so there's no bits sticking out. And just pat the bits of glitter down so that it all lies flat. And then I shall tidy up around the edge with some acetone. And then just to smooth it off, I applied a coat normally of this polish over the top. And there you can see the difference between the encrusted method and just brushing the polish over the top of your base colour polish. It has a completely different effect. I shall now apply a coat of Poche fast drying top coat, which is a nice hard gel sort of finish effect to it, and that will give it plenty of protection and a nice glossy effect. So that's the encrusted glitter method using a sponge. As you can see, it's a really nice sparkly encrusted effect. And with the right glitter, it can look spectacular. So for this tutorial, I shall be starting with a base of red and blue. I've already painted my nails. This red is Russian Roulette by Essie, and the blue is Don't Stop Dancing by Nails Inc. And for the glitter on the red, I shall be using Turn It Up by Orly, and the silver glitter on the blue is Set in Stones by Essie. So I shall be starting with this now, and I shall be using just an all-over glitter technique, just small amounts of glitter. Similar to what you would do if you were to say put a glitter top coat over. But because the glitter pieces are bigger, it doesn't always go on very well when you're just brushing it on. Because sometimes you may find you have a big clump over here, and then over here it's just the liquid of the polish. So I find it's a better method just to do it with a sponge. So make sure you shake the bottle really well first of all to mix it all up, and then simply brush the pieces onto the sponge, trying to spread them about as much as possible, because you don't really want a great big clump in one place. And then just gently try your best to gauge where you want pieces. Need a couple more pieces just down here. I would say that is probably about right. But then you just stop. When you get to the point where you like it, then just stop. Little is more, so just keep adding little bits where you want them. Now, if you want less pieces on the nail than this amount, just a few strategically placed big pieces, particularly if you've got big glitter pieces. It's not actually a sponge method, but this is the best method that I've found. So you need something to paint the polish on. This is just a stamping scraper, but you could use a bit of tin foil or just a little piece of plastic or plastic bag or something like that. And you're going to need a dotting tool like this. You can use a wooden cuticle stick like this, or if you haven't got one of these, you can use a cocktail stick. That would be fine, just something to pick it up with. So then you want to just spread it out as much as possible, and then get your stick and just pick it up like that. There. And then just place it on, push it down a little bit so it sticks down. And you can just push it down with your finger just to make sure that it's stuck down properly. The one there. If it starts to get sticky when it won't, then just paint some more on. It's just because the nail polish has dried a little bit. There. Those big pieces. There. So that's another way of putting specific pieces where you want them. And that works really well if you have large glitter pieces. Like these. This one has got like little discs And you can get some with all sorts of like hearts and little shapes and stuff like that. So that's the best way of applying those. So for this one, I'm going to do a gradient, glitter gradient, whereby there's more glitter on the top here than there is down here, but you can still add a little bit coming further down. You can do this from the bottom up, or you can do it from the top down. So I shall be doing it from the top down on this occasion. So I shall start on the edge. So you want to apply it fairly thickly. Like that. And then I just take a little bit and put it further down. Just build it up at where you want it. I think that is just about enough. It's heavier on the end here, and then it graduates down. I'm going to remove the masking that I've done now around the nail, and clean up the edges if there's any, if I need to, with some acetone, and we'll see what the result is. So now I just need to apply some top coat. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little compilation of various sponge techniques. It's always fun for different designs, different ways of doing nail art and glitter application. So if you enjoyed the video, please let me know what you think. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you soon.